And, what you need to do is do a buyer's consultation. It's always smart to do a quick buyer's consultation. And that could be something so formal as to sitting them down at the office and having them come in and having a one-on-one with them and having a presentation for them. We do have a presentation that you can put together in Command. It's very simple to do. It might take a little time to type in all of your information and print it out. But once you have it and have many of those printed, then you'll have your buyer's presentation. I have my own that I give to buyers, or I email my presentation to buyers sometimes. So finding buyers, tell me, the buyers that you're working with right now, how have you found the buyers? Where did they come from? Where did you start working with them?
They are my friends.
They're your friends. Yes. And you know what? That's where our first buyers come from. Your first buyers are your family, your neighbors, your friends of friends. And that's awesome because they know you, they love you, they trust you, and they want to help you succeed in your business. So that is excellent that you have your friends. That's the first thing you want to do. Other ways of getting buyers is through social media, open houses, Facebook ads, marketing and mail outs. Those are some other means of getting buyers as well. Do you have a Facebook account?
Yes.
Good. So a buyer consultation, we already talked about the buyer consultation, but if you go into Command, there is an area there where you can start filling out all of your information. You can get some guidance and some help doing that. That's another class, because I'm sure we have a class on that, but you're going to want to put that together. You're going to want to have it. You're going to want to have some hard copies and keep those with you everywhere you go. You're going to want to have those in a PDF on your laptop so that you can quickly email those to any prospective buyers, that you may have not met yet. And that gives them all the information that they need to know. And then I would have them go over that. And then the first time you show them a home, they may have questions for you, but it's a good chance for them to review that. And then they'll ask you questions. So you're going to want to set expectations. Obviously, your family members, they're devoted to you. They're loyal to you. They're not going to go and buy a house from somebody else, right?
Yes.
You've got that straight, right? Okay. So you set that expectation. But when you start working with a buyer, you're going to explain to them how you're going to work. And, one of the things that I do is I tell them that I'm going to be loyal to them. I'm going to work hard for them. I'm going to send them information. I'm going to show them properties and give them detailed information. I'm going to do research for them on the properties that they want. And I'm going to tell them that, I would really love to have that loyalty back from them as well. If they do see a house while they're driving around, or if they are going to an open house, you want to know about it. You want to make sure that they tell you about it so that you can call that agent at that open house and let them know that they're working with you, so you don't lose the buyer. I mean, the whole thing is there's three important things. They've got to want to buy a house. They've got to want to buy a house soon, and you need them to want to buy a house from you. So they need to buy a house soon, and buy a house from you. Those are the three very important criteria. You also obviously want to make sure that they can buy. So naturally, you're going to have them talk to a loan officer. Sometimes they have their own. Sometimes you would refer them to a loan officer. Your buyer that you're working with, your relative, your friend, family member, are they pre-approved? Did you get them pre-approved from a lender?
Yes.
Oh, good. Now, was it a lender that they had themselves, or did you refer them to a lender?
They have them themselves, but they are also the friends of mine, and they are Nepali too. So
okay,
it's easy to work with them.
So what you'll want to do is have a few different lenders, names and phone numbers, and we have a lender in-house here, Chris, with Cross Country Mortgage. You should probably introduce yourself to him, get some of his cards, have his email on hand, and you're going to want to refer, a few different lenders to the buyer so they can make a decision as to which one they want to go with. It's always wise to do that. As you start to grow and learn and do more business, you'll learn which ones you like to work with, and you start adding to your list of lenders so that you can get that buyer approved, because you do not want to be running around with a buyer when they can't buy. There's nothing more frustrating than that. We'll figure that out early. And then sometimes the buyers are a little reluctant to get pre-approved. There's various reasons why they don't want to, but you need to express to them the importance of it. Not only is it going to be wasting your time, but they're going to be wasting their time as well, because let's say they go out and find a house that they love. Well, you cannot make an offer on a house unless you have a pre-approval, and they have to understand the importance of that, you know? So make sure that they do get that pre-approval. I can't stress that enough. So here's some questions to ask. You know, review the consumer guide to agency relationship with the buyer. You do need to have them sign that before working with them. Actually, you should have that in your file. You're going to want to ask their criteria for the home they want to buy. You know, because you're going to want to set them up on a search. And I'm sure you're doing that for your friend or your relative. You have them set up on a search. Let's say they tell you, we're looking between 250 and 300,000. We want a 3+ bedroom, a 2+ bath, 2-car garage with a basement. And great. So you're going to set them up, and they want to look in Independence and North Royalton or whatever areas. So you're going to set that all up, and you're going to begin to send them the areas that they like. And, you know, they're going to start to look online. And is that how is that working out for your buyer? You're obviously doing that for them, right?
Yes, they are
Okay.
looking for a 3-bedroom.
Okay. So, but you know what happens a lot of the times, you know, especially in this market today, you'll have buyers that are looking, and there's very few homes. So a lot of times you're adjusting, you're changing things, because I've had that as well. They tell me one thing, and then I do a search and I send them 2 houses. And that's all that there is. In a typical normal market, you might have more like 10 or 15 homes, but because it is a seller's market and inventory is very low, there may not be that many homes. So ask them if they could modify their criteria. You know, maybe they want to look in a different area. Maybe they want to look at 2+ bedrooms, or maybe only a 1-car garage. So a lot of times they change their criteria, and that's okay, but you need to stay in touch with them. So don't just put them on a search and just let those emails go to them. You need to check in with them every 4 to 5 days, or pick up the phone and call them and see if there's anything that came on the market that they like. And you can certainly recommend homes as well that you see. Check in their search and see what's new. Ask for clarification and push them to think wide when necessary. That's kind of goes along with what I just said. What is their timeline? Are they in a rental? Do they need to be out of their rental? Are they in a lease? I always ask that, because people call me and say, I'm in a lease until September. And we're like, well, kind of premature to look at houses right now when you're not going to be able to get out of the lease until September. Sometimes they're able to get out of the lease, but it just depends. But you need to know their timeline. Who is involved with making the decision? Is it, you know, a single person? Is it a husband, wife? If you've got a young couple, sometimes they really rely on mom and dad's opinion. That's always fun. So you need to know who is going to be in the decision-making process. When do they typically want to view homes is a good question to ask them. We obviously are available all the time. And a lot of the times we're showing homes weekends, evenings, because people do work during the day. So ask them when they're available to see homes. It's always good to know that. Are they pre-approved? We already talked about that. They must be. Talk about open houses and for sale by owners. So you could mention this, and you can give them a stack of your business cards, because if they do wander off and they do want to go see some open houses, make sure that you explain to them, if you go to an open house, please give my card. Tell them you have an agent, your agent's not available, and make sure that they give your card to the agent that's hosting the open house. Or better yet, have them quickly text you and say, hey, I'm heading over to an open house. I just wanted to let you know. You can get an address of the property and maybe get online and find out who the listing agent is and see who's holding the house open, and just give them a quick call and tell them you're going to be sending a client over to their open house. And usually people are okay with that, but you just want to do that. Do you have any questions about that?
How this sale by owner works?
Okay, for sale by owner can be a little tricky. Most for sale by owners. In fact, I just showed one. I had a buyer I've been working with for quite a while. She called me and said she wanted to see a home, gave me the address. Naturally, I'm looking it up on the online on MLS, and of course it's not there. So naturally I'm like, okay, it must be on Zillow. So I jump over to Zillow, type in the address, and lo and behold, there's the house on Zillow for sale by owner. Well, my buyer doesn't know that. They don't understand how it works. So I look up the address, I found the phone number, and I called the seller directly. And I said, hi, it's Sandy Braun with Keller Williams. I see you have a home for sale. I'm working with a buyer, and the buyer has some interest in seeing your home. I would love to show it on Friday. Can I do that? And that's all I say. I don't start into the commission at all right away. I kind of get a feel for what they're saying. And, they're going to say to me right away, oh, no, we're not paying a commission, or, whatever they feel, they're going to tell you what they're thinking and feeling. This particular for sale by owner that I called happened to be somebody that I knew. So it was kind of cute. So I did go and I showed the property, and they didn't like the property. But as it turns out, after this class today, I'm going over there because they called me and said, we're thinking of listing your home. So it worked out great for me. But you want to stay in a relationship with them. You want to contact them, you want to call them. But I would just, go and show the house, see if your buyer's even interested in the house. First of all, leave your card, talk to them. And then, if your buyer is interested, I would call the seller back, the for sale by owner seller. And I would say, my buyer is interested in your home. I have some questions. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be writing up an offer. And I'm going to be asking for a commission. And they're going to ask you how much the commission is. And I think at this point, a lot of times what I would do is just write in like 3%, because, at that point, they're not listing the home. But if you're going to be working with a buyer, just tell them you're going to be asking for 3% and just write it into the contract. And then you're going to just present the offer as you normally would, and then try to work that way. If they absolutely say, no, they're not paying you. Well, and I think at this point, most of them will. You'd be surprised. I think people think they won't, but they will. I think you can ask your buyer if they would like to maybe split 1.5% and 1.5%, that way you're still getting your 3%. That's what I would do. Have you come across a for sale by owner that you've had to deal with this?
Yes, I called one of the seller, and they said they are not paying any commission. So.
Oh, joy. And does your buyer have interest in the house?
No, they also don't want to pay the commission. So
the buyer doesn't either?
Yes. So I have to, yeah.
That's a toughie. That is a toughie. And so, if the seller just does not want to pay the commission and the buyer doesn't want, the buyer is this a relative or friend of yours, or just somebody else?
Yeah, it's somebody else.
Okay. And you showed the house. Did you show the house to them?
No, I first talked to the seller. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's a tough situation. I mean, I think that you have to have some ammunition, and you've got to be quick to tell them, ask them why they don't want to pay the commission. Do they understand, what you do during the transaction? They're going to need your help. Do they understand? Yeah. Have they ever sold a home before? I don't know if they have or not, but there's a lot involved with the transaction, and they probably will need your help. So will the buyer, But if they absolutely will not pay your commission, I mean, there's not much you can do about it. They're just going to be difficult. Then, I would actually talk the buyer out of buying the house and move on to something else if you could. I don't know. That's what I would say. It's not probably what you want to hear, but that's what I would do, because I'm not going to work for nothing. No. Yeah. So go find them another house, Okay, so who's involved? Typically. Okay, so we talked about for sale by owners and open houses. Oh, another thing is, you ask the buyer when you first meet with them, how do they prefer to communicate? I have buyers over 65 that want a phone call. I have the millennials that want a text. And then you have everybody in between that wants an email. So most people today, I find, would prefer texting. Because everybody's busy, you're at work, everybody's on the phones texting, and but you ask them how they prefer to be contacted. And that's, you're gonna have to make a note in their file and remember how they want to be contacted. And you'll get to know each client as you start working with each one, how they prefer to communicate. When you meet them the first time, it's good to, don't go right into business. Make sure that you definitely, get rapport with them. Get rapport. I always try to find some kind of common ground with the buyers, especially at an open house. They're walking through the home with you. And, I don't come right out of the gate like, hi, how are you? My name is Sandy Braun. Where are you looking? What are you looking for? What's your price point? You don't want to sound like a robot. You want to just get rapport with them and just try to get some, get to know them a little bit. Comment on something they're wearing, their car, their children, just get some kind of rapport. Let's see, moving on. Once you finally found a house, you've been showing them 15 houses and they found one they like, and now they want to make an offer, right? So step one to making an offer is you're going to create the opportunity in Command, and you're going to start a transaction in .loop from your opportunity. Have you written a contract yet? Have you had the benefit of doing that yet? Have you tried that?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. Have you taken the .loop class?
Yes,
You have?
I took a
Okay.
.loop.
Okay, good. Oh, we have a new one. Sophia, how are you? I think I'm not sure who it is, but I think it's Sophia. So, before I write an offer, especially in today's market, I am going to contact the listing agent. If you can get a hold of them, half the time you can't. But I'm going to try to find out if they do have an offer on the table already. Half the time they will. And I've had buyers that don't want to write an offer if there's already an offer. So what I typically do is I will send an email or a text message to the agent and say, I have a buyer who wants to write an offer. However, they don't want to write an offer if you've got multiples. Could you tell me if you have an offer? And then you'll get an answer from the agent. If they don't have an offer, that's great news. You're going to be the first one in. That's wonderful. And so you're going to, obviously, for the buyer, I would, obviously look up the information about the property. I always go into, when you're in the MLS, there's a link there next to, in the middle there, it's the parcel number. I always go in there and I look at that, who the owner is, what the value range is. I just like to look at the history. I also do look at the history of that house, how many times it's been in the market. It's good to know how long it's been on the market. I pull up the disclosure forms on the house, the lead-based paint form, any other information that the agent has in the supplements. And I'm going to save those on my laptop. I create a PDF, a file for that client, and then I'm going to email those documents to the buyer because you're going to need those anyway. So I email those to the buyer. And then also you're going to add those documents into the loop, because if you're going to create a offer, you're going to have those documents in the loop. So that was step one and step two. Oops, I'm going ahead here. Step three, your clients, if you're going to write an offer, I always ask the buyers, please text me your legal name. You're going to want that. So if it's Susie, you've been calling her Susie Brown, maybe it's Susan M. Brown. You're going to need to know that. I always ask them how they sign their checks or how they sign their legal name, because if they do use an initial, you're going to need that information. So you have to create that into the loop, their exact legal name, and then you're going to need their email address. And that's going to help you prepare the contract in the .loop so that you can email them the documents. Tell them.
The spouse also need to sign the documents?
Well, it depends who's purchasing the home. So if you have a husband and wife and they're both working and they're both pre-approved from the lender, then yes, they can both go on the document. Absolutely. If you only have a
one-
husband and the wife isn't working, or the wife is working and the husband's not working, and he qualifies without the spouse, then he only needs to go on the document. Okay? That's a little different when you sell. A buyer can buy without the spouse, but a seller cannot sell without the spouse. The spouse always needs to know when the other spouse is selling. It's kind of important. So yes, you can do it without, but again, only if they're both pre-approved with the lender, if they have talked to that lender and the lender has done the credit check background on both parties. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, here's a chat. Let me see. I'm ignoring the chat. Oh, doing well, thanks. Sorry, sounded okay. Hi, Sophia, welcome. All right, let's go to the next page. So let's say you've written your offer, you've got everything signed, you sent it to the other agent, you've got everything in there that you need. And, you waited. Sometimes it's very hard to wait, but when I send an offer over, I always tell the buyer, be patient. We may not know right away. Sometimes they like to think about it overnight, especially if there are multiple offers. If there are multiple offers, and you're one of them, you may not hear for 3 days. Sometimes people will write in a bully clause. A bully clause is where you say the buyer requires an answer to this offer by 9 p.m. this evening. Otherwise, the contract is void. That's a bully clause. That means I want an answer by 9 o'clock or it's a void contract. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. In a multiple offer situation, it does not work because they don't care. So let's say you present your offer, you get it, you talk to the listing agent, you've got everything signed and you submitted it to the listing agent and she calls you the next day and says, congratulations, my seller's accepted your offer. That's great, hooray. You're gonna call your client, you're gonna congratulate them, obviously. They're gonna be so ecstatic, they're gonna be nervous, they're not even gonna remember what they offered or the dates in the contract, I assure you. You're going to discuss the next steps with them. You're going to remind them of the timeline and you're going to have to be there for the timeline to remind them. So you're going to have to stay on top of the contract because in the contract, what's the first thing that needs to be done? After you get an accepted contract, there's a couple of things you need to do first. The first thing is you need to schedule your home inspection if in fact you're going to have an inspection. And you're going to have to collect that earnest money because in our contract, it states there that we must redeem the earnest money within 4 days, right? You can change that if you want. A lot of people today, and I've done this, you can make it 5 days, but you want a good strategy is to try to get that inspection done before you submit the earnest money. I mean, naturally, if you have an inspection and it's an unacceptable inspection and there's a lot of work and your buyer is like, no, I don't want this house, then you will naturally get the earnest money back, but it's a process. So sometimes I will try to schedule the inspection before depositing the earnest money, but you do have 4 days to get that done. And the first thing really that you need to do once you have that signed contract is yes, to get the inspection scheduled, but you do need to get that contract, the signed executed contract to the bank that the buyers are going to be getting the loan from and to the title company that you have written into the contract. So it's got to go to the bank and the title company. Okay. And then you're going to schedule your inspection. And then you're going to make sure that your buyer communicates with the lender. So a lot of times I'll say to the buyer, okay, I've sent the contract to the bank. Make sure that you call them right away. I'm going to let them know that we have an executed contract because they're going to need to stay in touch with the bank because the bank's going to now need additional information from them. They're going to have to get, a lot of information to them. So make sure that your buyer is definitely communicates with them. You know, I've had a couple occasions in my career where, you know, the lender will call me in 4 days and say, Sandy, I haven't heard from the buyer, you know, and you're like, well, okay, let's get the buyer on the phone then. That has happened to me, but you need to make sure that they follow the steps in the contract. So remind them of the timeline, inspections, getting everything into the lender, and then you're going to add the documents to the opportunity in command. And then all those documents need to go in one by one. You place them in command. There's a whole class on that. I'm not going to go over that, but there are documents that need to be added in there one by one. It tells you which ones are required, which ones are optional. And once you have all those documents in there, you're going to click send and they're going to go to compliance. One thing you will need though, once your buyer deposits the earnest money, and they have a couple different ways of depositing the earnest money. And in our contracts, you can wire the funds. You can mail a check if it's less than $1,000. I don't even think they take money orders anymore, but I always have the buyer wire the funds. It's easier. It's cleaner. I'm not running around with checks. I can't tell you, I just cleaned out my office not too long ago. Is anybody here? I found a check, probably 10 years old, but I don't want to mess around with checks. I don't want checks. So you're going to email the title company to please send your buyer wire instructions so that they can send the $1,000 earnest money deposit or whatever the money amount is. Could be 1,000, could be 2,000, whatever you wrote into your contract, okay? And so they're going to email your buyer the wire instructions, and the easiest way to do that is just take that document and take it to the bank and let the bank do the wiring for you. There are some title companies that have on their website a link where you can just deposit your earnest money that way and connect your bank account. A lot of older people are not comfortable doing that. So it depends what your buyer's comfort level is, but either way, you can do that. Okay.
Yes.
Let me stop there. I've gone over a lot. Is there anything on your mind, anything that I didn't explain or questions about?
No question yet.
Sophia, do you have any questions? No? Okay. All right. Okay, so here's the purchase process timeline. And I already kind of went over that, but this is kind of a checklist of what there is. The earnest money deposit.
Sandy, I don't
check.
think we're seeing the timeline, sorry.
What's that?
I don't think we're seeing the timeline. Are you showing it on your screen or you're saying it out loud?
Oh, it's on my screen.
Oh, is it? We can't see it, sorry.
Oh, I wonder why.
Hold on, let me come back there, see if I can do something.
It's funny, I have two, it's weird. I have two,
Oh, yeah, we can't see any of that.
what the heck? All this time, he's not been able to see anything?
Yeah.
I have two of these things open here. What does that mean exactly? I didn't do. Katie was here. She was showing me how to do this.
It's okay.
Yeah. We're fixing it.
There we go.
All this time, he hasn't seen anything? Oh my God.
That's okay.
Okay. See,
Can you guys see that now? The purchase
Yes,
process?
yes.
Okay, good.
okay, here I'm rambling on and there's nothing on the screen. Technology is not my best suit. Okay. So yeah, you missed all these things. There were all these things, but that's okay. Here's all the things that we went over. Okay. Let me go back. So here's the purchase process timeline. As I mentioned, the earnest money deposit could be check, wire, electronic deposit, inspections. And you must provide your buyer with 3 inspectors' names. So As a new agent, you haven't sold many properties yet, so it's a good idea to jump on Facebook and ask other more experienced agents for some names of inspectors that they would recommend, so that you have 3. You need at least 3 or 4 in your pocket that you can send to your buyers. So you need 3. The ROC. Once you have your inspection completed, your buyer is going to move forward with the contract, if that's in fact what they're going to do. You'll have a removal of contingencies. We call it the ROC. This is a very important step in negotiating a contract. And it's probably one of the most important. So in this market today, buyers are making offers way over list price. I just had one. I have a listing. I had 3 offers on it. We took the highest offer, and now we've got the buyer who had the inspection, and they've come back and said, we want $6,000 off the purchase price, because they think they paid all this money for the house and now they want to negotiate, right? So it can be a little tricky. So during this time, and what I tell my buyers when I'm working with buyers, I tell my buyers that we're going to have an inspection. You're going to be present for the inspection. I'm going to be present for the inspection. The buyer is going to be present, and so is the inspector. So you're going to be there for the full 2.5, sometimes 3 hours during the inspection. And I always tell the buyers, we're looking for health, safety, and really big ticket items that weren't disclosed. Obviously, if there's a leaking roof, the furnace isn't working, toilet's not flushing, there's a leak under the kitchen sink, flooding basement, the electrical panel is shot, and there's a mouse nest in there. Could be many things, but you're going to have a 25, 35 page complete inspection report. There are going to be a lot of things on there, but I tell my buyer and I prepare them, we're only looking for really serious, big ticket items, health and safety, and you prepare them. So when we're done with the inspection, it probably takes another day for the inspector to send that to all parties. I always ask for the report to be sent to me as the buyer's agent. Sometimes they want the approval. And, you know, we've got 3 days to review that report. And sometimes we take the full 3 days, sometimes we take a day. So your buyer can do one of 3 things. They can move forward with the purchase, remove the contingency, and purchase the home. They can back out of the contract because their inspector found non-disclosed items that the buyer is concerned about. And it would have to be something pretty severe for them to back out of the contract. Cracked foundation, house is leaning, I mean, all kinds of things, but they're just like, no way, I don't want this house. You're going to send over the copy of the report that states this clearly, and then send it to the listing agent. We want to release, the buyer does not want to purchase the home because of X, Y, and Z. And then you can get out of the deal and you get the earnest money back to your buyer. And the most common one is, of course, negotiate the price or repairs after inspection. If there are repairs that need to be done, there's an art to negotiating these repairs. You can go over the report with your buyer, discuss with them what is of concerning to them. I tell them what I think is important, but you know, what may be important to me may not be important to them, and vice versa. So you ask their opinion, what is their concern on the report, the items that they have. A lot of the times it's simple electrical repairs. Maybe there's a leak under the kitchen sink. Could be, gosh, let me think of something that's common. You know, maybe the dishwasher is leaking or the bathtub is draining very slowly. Those are some common things that I see a lot. So you're going to write on the ROC that your buyer still is interested in purchasing the home. However, they would like the seller to repair the following items at their expense prior to closing. And then you're going to list those 3 items or reference them in the report. If you're going to reference them in the report, usually in the report, it's A1, AB, or A2, whatever it is, and you're going to reference those. And then your buyer is going to sign that, and you're going to send it over to the listing agent and say, you know what, my buyers still love the house. However, they found these items. They would like the seller to repair those at their expense. So that's one option. The other option is to do this. Just ask for a credit at closing, which I think is the most common. This is what I prefer to do, because honestly, I don't like my, if I'm representing the buyer, I don't want the seller to make repairs, because then you have to come back and look at the repairs. You know, what if they didn't do them correctly? What if you are happy with the repairs, on and on. And if you do need to make any electrical repairs or plumbing repairs, you're going to state clearly in the report that you do want a licensed, certified, bona fide plumber, electrician, heating, cooling person to do those repairs, and then provide you with a paid receipt, and then get that back to the buyer and you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but if you have any questions about that, let me know. Any questions about the inspection process, guys? Anything? I'll stop for a minute. Okay, moving on. Oh, I got a chat. Okay, okay. Okay, so then once we negotiate the inspections and we're all good to go, maybe they're going to make repairs. We've decided to put $3,000 towards closing costs, whatever it may be. Wonderful. We've gotten beyond that. Excellent. Now we're moving on. And now the bank will order an appraisal of the property, and the appraiser will call the listing agent to gain access to the house, because they're the ones, of course, have the lockbox and they have to get their permission. So the appraisal will be ordered, and that will be done. Usually it's within 7 to 10 business days after it's been ordered. It does take some time to get that back. Once the appraisal is completed, and let's say the house was sold for $220, it appraises at $220. That's a wonderful thing. The appraiser will then contact the loan officer. The loan officer will contact the buyer and say, congratulations, the house appraised. That's a great thing. The appraisal is only for the buyer's knowledge. The seller does not need to know what that property appraised for. Let's say your buyer purchased it for $220 and the appraisal comes in at $240, right? You don't want to tell the seller or the seller's agent that it appraised at $240, because they're going to be pissed off, because they think, oh, we could have gotten more. It's always just for the buyer and the buyer's agent's information. Seller does not need to know. The only time that they need to know if it doesn't appraise. If it doesn't appraise, let's say you buy the house for $200 and the appraisal comes in at $195. Well, if you don't have an appraisal gap addendum covering that, which are very popular today, the bank is looking to the buyer to find out what they want to do, because they're not going to loan until somebody comes up with additional $5,000 gap. So if it doesn't appraise and the buyer is thinking, well, wait a minute, I overpaid for the house, you could go back to the seller and say, hey, it didn't appraise. You know what? Can we split the difference? I'll come up 2,500, you come down 2,500, and we'll make it happen. Or, you know, sometimes you're renegotiating that. It can get a little sticky sometimes, but you know, the biggest hurdles are getting through the appraisal and the inspection. The next step to the process is loan commitment. So that loan officer is packaging everything up, getting the appraisal, getting all the documents, verifying income, verifying employment. They're going to do all these things behind the scenes, because they need to do that to make the loan. So they're going to package it up. They're going to submit it to the underwriter. The underwriter is going to review all the documents. And that's when he stamps it approved, and you've got loan commitment. Sometimes it'll be approved with some conditions, small conditions of verified pay stub, that maybe there was an outstanding lien or a judgment that was not paid off, or maybe they needed updated bank statements. There's different things that sometimes the underwriter will still need, but usually they're minor. Once that's all done, the buyer's got everything in, we've got complete loan commitment. And during this process, the title company is doing their thing. They're doing the title search on the property. You know, they have to make sure there's no liens or encumbrances on title. Obviously, they need to get information from the listing of the seller because they're going to be paying off a loan if there's an outstanding balance. You know, that's what they do. So then we get to the point where, okay, we've got a clear to close, all conditions have been met, the bank's got a commitment, the buyer's excited, title company's done with their thing, and now we're ready to close. We're ready to close. So what happens is the buyer and you, the agent, you have an opportunity, and it's in our contract, you have to walk through the house. And the purpose of the walkthrough is just to make sure the house is in the same condition that it was when your buyer made the offer. Yes, you went through the inspection process, you were there, but that sometimes was 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. The buyer hasn't been in the house for 4 weeks. So now it's the opportunity for the buyer to go back through the house with you, and you're just looking to make sure that there's nothing unusual. There's no cracked windows, there's no tree branches laying on the roof, this sort of thing. There's no water in the basement. I did have that happen to me once. I actually walked through a house and it was 2 days before closing and there was water in the basement. Needless to say, we didn't buy the house. So things like that happen, and that's why it's important for you to walk through the house with your buyer. So they'll issue a clear to close, you do the walkthrough, and the buyer then will meet with the title company. It's the closing agent. They're going to contact them sometimes 2 or 3 days prior to closing, and they're going to meet them in a location that's convenient for everybody. And that is, again, just for the buyer, and they will do the final signing of their documents. They'll sign their documents. The title agent takes those documents back to the title company, and the next day they actually pay somebody to courier those documents to the courthouse, whatever county the property's in, and they file it. They stand in line and they actually deliver those documents to the auditor's department down there, and they actually transfer the property. So, and then it's closed. Typically in a transaction, the buyer is going to get the keys the same day. And so what I typically do is arrange to get the keys from the listing agent. Usually they tell you just go get them out of the lockbox, which I do. I have little keychains that I take the key and put it on the little keychain. It's a little house keychain. And at that time, hopefully by that time, you'll have enough sense to go buy a little closing gift for your buyer. I just did this yesterday for a buyer. I bought them a beautiful bottle of wine. I bought a basket and I put some cheese and crackers and wrapped it all up. I keep cellophane in my house. And so when I have a last minute quick closing basket, I can put something together and I give that to my buyer. And I meet them at the house, and then I deliver the property to them, and I wish them luck, hugs and kisses, and don't forget to refer me to all your friends and family, and they do. So that is this process. Let me see here. Why I went through that quickly. Let me see what I have here. What time is it? 3:48. Let me see if there's anything I missed here. Oh, here's something. Etiquette tips and tricks. I think I missed this one. When you do have showings, and typically, you know, you might have 1, 2, 3, you know, you've got to coordinate those showings and make sure you allow enough time. I know this market is kind of crazy, and, you know, you're waiting in line to get into the house. There's other people ahead of you, and it can be nuts, but be on time. When you say you're going to be there between 2 and 2:30, be there at 2 to 2:30, because, you know, you as an agent, you have that little slotted time to be there. And, you know, it is up to you to secure that property. When you're in there with your buyer and you're all done, you've left lights on, you know, turn all the lights off and make sure you lock that door and secure that property. It is up to you to secure that property. Delays do happen. If they do, and believe me, I've done this. I've been like 25 to 45 minutes late. It's hard to call on your phone while you're driving to tell them you're going to be late. I simply have gone to the door and say, you know what, I'm so sorry, I'm extremely late, I ran into traffic. Is it at all possible that we can still come through your home? Sometimes they're very kind about it and they say, sure, no problem. But other times they say, no, we're just sat down to dinner. Oh, well, things do happen. If it's a vacant house, usually it is. Lucky if you are late, you can just get in because it's, it's vacant. Be safe. I mean, I can't tell you how important that is. I felt weird going into some homes throughout my career, empty homes, vacant homes where a home was supposed to be vacant. And I know I walked into a bedroom and there was a mattress on the floor and I felt like there was somebody underneath the covers and we just got out of there. I felt there was a squatter there. So there's weird things. Use your instincts. Your instincts are the strongest things you'll ever have. Always use your instincts. No commission is worth risking your life. And there have been some weird things that have happened. So just use your instincts. Prep your client, I mean, maybe this is the first time. I mean, I can't say this enough, but we have the weirdest job. I think our industry is the strangest industry in the world, where we're just going into other people's homes, showing the home. It's a little strange, but I've had properties, I've walked through houses with buyers that had children, and children, some of these parents allow them to just walk around and, they were jumping on beds. I mean, you hope the parents control these kids, but you kind of have to step in and say, I really don't want you to do that. God, they should not ever touch anything in the house. I had a client that actually broke a JennAir. It was the cooktop. She picked up a cabinet. She thought it was going to be mounted over the stove and she dropped it and it shattered and it was $2,000 and it was a big problem, but I didn't pay for it. We don't have errors in emission insurance to cover that kind of stuff, but the buyer did pay for that, that repair. But just make sure that they shouldn't be touching anything. And we as adults and agents shouldn't have to tell our buyers not to touch things, but sometimes you do. Be aware of who may be listening today, especially. They're supposed to tell us when we make the appointment or in the MLS, whether there's listening devices. And sometimes they don't tell you that, but just tell your buyers before you walk in the door that they may have listening devices and cameras, and to be careful what they say and what they do. And if they really hate the house, or even if they really like the house, they could be listening to you saying, hey, do you think they'll take $240 for it? I mean, you don't want them saying that. So just be careful of that. Read those broker remarks. I can't tell you how many people I put broker remarks in my listings, and it says clearly in the bottom, septic or something has been ordered, the POS has been ordered, and they're calling and asking me questions. And I said, did you read the bottom of the broker remarks? Sometimes there's valuable information in those broker remarks. Read those broker remarks. In fact, I'm old fashioned. When I show property, I have the full printout with me in my book that I carry around with me. I know some of the millennials are always doing it on their phones now. I'm not that quick to do that. I can't be looking at my phone constantly when I'm walking through the house. I feel like it's distracting to me. I'd rather just have the folder with me. So whatever works for you. And then of course, be aware of any offer deadlines. Again, before you even show the property, if it's brand new on the market, 1 day, 2 days, I would email or text the agent and say, hey, is this property still available? It may not be, and maybe it's already sold. I've had that happen where I would go to a property, I made an appointment and went to the house, and here it sold that within that hour. I was so angry at myself that I didn't call to find out, because don't expect them to call you just because you made the appointment. Agents are so busy right now, they may not call you and say, hey, don't bother showing, it's already sold, because that's nothing there. It's very aggravating to have that happen. Let me see. I think we're almost done here. Guys, have any questions for me? Anything at all I missed, didn't cover, please shout out. I'm here to help you. I've been doing this for 30 years. So there isn't anything that I haven't come across, I guarantee you. But the other thing with buyers is, hanging on to them. You think you got a buyer, they're going to work with you, you show them some houses, and then they kind of back off a little bit because maybe there's nothing available. Do not lose that buyer. They're going to buy at some point. You must stay in touch with them. If there's anything I can tell you that's more important, that would be it. I think because I have made that mistake through the years, and this business is all about staying in touch. Don't think after a month, if you haven't heard from them, they're going to call you. They're going to think that you are not interested in them anymore. I assure you that's what they're thinking. You need to stay in touch with them, even if it's a quick text message. Hey, just checking in. I see nothing news on the market. Do you want me to change anything? Is there anything else I can do for you? Do you have any questions? Stay in touch with these buyers. The more buyers you have, the more business. And, you know, it is a business. You wake up every morning, you're either going to go out and drive to a job and 9 to 5 and sit at an office desk, or you're going to wake up in the morning and get your cup of coffee and sit at your kitchen table and get your laptop and you start working at home. It's easy to get lazy in this business, but I can assure you that it's very rewarding if you just stay in touch with the clients and reach out. Anything else, guys? Final thoughts. Come on, you guys, shoot me some questions. Okay, sounds good.